Good morning. Holy shit, that's hot. That's worse than yesterday. Wow. It's a new mic. We brought in a second one. So awesome. So I can tell from your response you're all feeling about like me right now. Waking up an hour earlier than I was supposed to with a hangover sucks, and I'm sure you guys are right there with me. Some of you anyway. I see some faces out there that probably aren't even old enough to drink. No judge. I don't judge anybody. So a couple housekeeping things. First of all, please, whatever you do, do not block the fire exit. I've got folks stationed back there. They will tackle you out of that doorway if you try to stand in it. So no standing in the fire exits, please. With that in mind, you guys are in Ballroom C. This is the anything track. If that's not where you wanted to be, run now. I'm locking the doors in 10 seconds. Get out. Okay, some of you heard this yesterday. I know, same spiel. With that in mind, the second thing, cell phones, turn them off. Silence them. Something. We got almost the entire day yesterday. One person at 3:50 in the afternoon had their phone go off. That's not his blood in row 4 over there, I promise. No, I wore boots. I will crush you if I hear that phone, I swear. Other than that, we're ready to rock. You guys ready? I love it. You guys actually have energy. Shit, this is cool. All right. So, kicking things off, we are talking about info security versus digital security. We are going to dive in and look at how we can help give people context for what it is that we do in this crazy world. And to take it away, it's John DeRyke.
I like to walk around a little bit. So, obviously, thank you for all coming. I was not expecting a full room, or at least pretty close to it, so I appreciate it. I guess I used the right title. And so my reference is actually to the movie War Game, not Jigsaw. So if you wanted to expect the other one, I'm sorry. So thank you all for showing up. I will say the first thing is, as probably some of you know me, I am a sales guy. I work for Optiv. I've been around for 15 years, 16 years in the area. I am a sales guy. I started out on the networking side and realized that I was not the guy that's going to go home and pummel away, but I love security. I love those sort of things. So I did what I did best, is actually connecting people with other people, helping people out, go from there. Why am I here, and why did I talk about want to play a game? So a little who am I? I actually have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in painting and sculpture. So that is where I started out. So, and also I love IT security and security because they're all about puzzles. It's like a blank canvas. It's always something changing. There's always something new. You all are problem solvers because it's always changing. It's always very complex. It's one of those things. I also love to play games. I love to play D&D. I love to paint figures. I like to be the geek of geeks and go from there. So that is, I also love to go Vault of Midnight on Wednesday at 10 o'clock when they all of a sudden they get their comic books in for the day. So just to give you a back, so I am not a normal sales guy. I love this place. I've worked with, yeah, I know. So I work with just Chris and Jamie Payne. I run the strategic summit for them to develop that, to keep this going. So if you have any ideas, let us know. To be honest, we had the tattoo a couple years ago. I think next year's year number 10, so it's going to be even bigger. I am talking about bringing in trebuchets to see what we can do to have fun with that or something like that. So let us know, go from there. That is my job. I am also involved in the community and go from there. So why the title? Want to play games. Comes back to everybody loves to play games. Everybody likes to have a time. I mean, even non-IT people, I mean, how many people have had Angry Birds on their phone, right? Or every kid likes to pick up a game, play a game, figure it out. To be honest, our job is a game. We try to figure out puzzles, things go. It's always being sort of like a game of chess for security. It's always moving forward, going things like this, and trying to figure everything else in all pieces. And it's always, the rules are always changing. Always, always, always changing. New things come in. Why the need? So, as a salesperson, I always go into this whole thing of, all of a sudden they say, I only have so much budget. And as a security guy, we need to get out of the ideas of budget is the magic number. It is about aligning it to business. It's about business risk. Sort of like IT infrastructure, servers, networks, they all have projects. They have complete control of everything they do every day. There is no like, okay, and they can get 4 nines by putting redundancy in, all of those systems, they can get 4 nines. Their life is pretty simple and they have complete control over what they do. We do not. We are only going to get maybe to 80%. We are planning on failing. There is no 4 nines in our life at all. And they don't seem to understand that. I've got customers who've all of a sudden like said, you know what, I went in to see I needed more headcount, and the infrastructure manager and the server manager says, why do you need somebody? I'm not getting any more. Why does security need to have more people? It's like, because my job is not a project. My job is always changing, always moving, always expanding. The new stuff that they buy affects me 10 times more than the stuff you guys. Whoops, almost swore there. So how do we do that? We have to find a way to talk to people who are not in security, who've never sat in your shoes, to experience the change, the flow, everything that you guys do every day, and how many variables that you have no control over in your life that all of a sudden change and go from there and screw up your day, pull you off your project, and go to the next phase. We had to figure that out. Well, too early. So the question is how do we do this, and how did I come up with this? So I created a dice game. I started out this about a year ago for GrrCON, and to explain, because I was trying to figure out how can I explain this to people non-IT, or how can you all explain to what you really do without getting technical. And last year I went on Kickstarter, which I love Kickstarter. My wife hates it because I have, I think, 20 in the last year that I've sponsored. And they just keep coming in. It's like, when did you buy this? Oh, a year ago. Don't worry about it, honey. It's already out of the checkbook. It's a long time ago. So last year I got a Kickstarter, which was just 3 dice, and I brought I had 20 or 30 of them here, and everybody loved them, right? It's like, oh, this is fun. This is just and then I took it in front of Phil Keebler at Meyer, and he says, I love this sort of thing because it's just a conversation starter. It's something that we can roll this dice, and we can say what happens, and people can see. And mostly it was user problems like ID 1010, issues between keyboard and chair, those sort of things that roll into the issues, or even application security concerns. And it started me thinking, okay, if I can roll this into some sort of dice game just to start a conversation started, just so that someone can have a conversation, understand all the variables that you guys work with, then that's at least a starting point. And that's what I started with. It's already gone through 3 permutations. So basically, I went through and created these 3 dice variables, broke them out to programs, variables, and businesses. So programs are things like incident response, identity access, vulnerability management, threat cloud. Those things are all changing. These are all different verticals in the areas that you guys have to deal with, no matter what part of IT or security you're in. They all affect you one way or another. This is also what all CISOs have to deal with. You have all these different programs, or I don't know if they're all programs, but they should be programs, or at least instances that go build and go from there. The variables, of course, this changes around, is users, because users always screw up or they do some good jobs. IT admins, someone makes a mistake, not necessarily security, but someone in the networking team leaves something open. Marketing goes and buys an AWS, puts their credit card down and opens things up, and data goes back through. Or even, threat intel, if you get bad threat intelligence from there. So, and the last one, of course, is the green one, is what sort of a CISO would be able to control. Like your partners, who you trust. Are they really good, or are they just providing you products? Are they going to be there to help you out when shit hits the fan? Because, as we know, shit hits the fan somewhere down our path. Sooner or later, our job is going to be pain. And the most important thing is to have someone you can rely on, or not rely on, and at least you'll know that. Also, budget. Budget goes up and down in IT security, and that's the thing we have to fight, is that security should not be fluctuated by the budget unless you're going to increase it because of an increase, which, we're all in the same room, so we're all on the same page of that. They'll disagree with us. Staffing. I'm sure you all have open spots in your groups that you work with, or even training, or training gets cut, people leave, new people come in, new things come into the picture. So that always is one more variable that a CISO has to deal with. There's also the business risk, because that's what we're lining to. So in other words, if your company is very risk tolerant, they say, oh, we just make widgets. Okay, that's they don't think of that as a risk issue for their customer. It goes from there. They're going to keep moving forward. But some companies are very they need to make sure that everything's locked down and go from there. It's sort of like, I don't know if you all heard Matt Carpenter speak. I mean, it's this crazy, crazy world, and that's a risk that I don't think anybody else understands. And then, let's see, that was the last one. I think that's it. So also you see two other symbols on these dice. One is the GrrCON skull, and then one is the binary. So binary code. So when I was creating these dice, I had to come up with these two wildcard solutions. And I asked Chris Payne, all right, here's your opportunity to decide which way you want to go. I said, do you want the GrrCON skull to be bad or good? He says, good. It's like, okay, that's where we'll go for this. And then the binaries, of course, is the bad wildcard. So here is the system. So also, here's the first permutation of the dice game. So in other words, the first set of dice was just to roll it, scan, go from there. This came up is that each category, you have 1d 12 dice to roll. You roll the dice, and each one at the start of the game to figure things out of how many points you have. And there's also the plus and minuses. Whoops. That's great. What's this do? As you roll these dice, it all of a sudden changes your aspects of everything that goes on in your day, every day. So in other words, all of a sudden you roll the dice, you get you get identity access management. All of a sudden you get a negative. That means somebody screwed up in ID access management, or someone forgot to delete somebody. Or you roll a plus or minuses in the users. So in other words, some user clicked on malware. It opens the door. It changes your variables. It goes from there. So the first step, of course, is to roll the d12s, right? And that will give you, obviously, 3d12s equals 36 potential. The goal of the game is to get to 30. So that also throws that you don't have to be perfect in everything. You just have to get to a certain level to reduce your risk. That's what we always do. We know that we're never going to be perfect. It's that whole perspective. And then also the links of how many rolls. So in other words, you can make this 4 rounds. So in other words, you can go 4 quarters per year. You can extend it out to 6 times a month, so halves. Or you can do 12 times over 3 years. So it's a variable time, so it gives you that perspective of a CISO either going through every quarter of the year, every month of the year, and that way you're starting to get this pattern of these checkpoints. You go from one point to the next. And as you go through, the next step, of course, is you roll the dice. The 2 sets of green, 2 sets of black, 2 sets of white. So one is a category of what category it is. The next is the outcome from going from there. And these start to change your variables on the side of the 12-sided dice. You also can either go play with yourself on this, on your own story of having the CISO dice and trying to get better so you can have conversations, or you can have everybody has a set of dice and you can all go against it to see who's the best CISO in the group to go from there. There you go. It's always a competition, right? One way or another. So you roll those dice, and then you match up the colors, and then we go to this matrix that we've created just to add plus and minus. Like I said, this is still rudimentary idea game to get this. So this is really not for you to experience being an IT security person, but to have a conversation with somebody to help them understand what you do by playing a game. So these are just the matrix that we created to sort of factor out. So in other words, if all of a sudden you rolled IAM in a category and you rolled, the lead score, the binary code, you would have a -3 on that category. So if you had an 8, you would all of a sudden go down to a 5 on that one. And the other ones would match up through the whole system. This conversation probably will not be an hour, just to let you know. You do this all the time. And so in other words, you set up how many times you're going to roll. And then the first person to 30 wins, or at least the closest person to 30 wins that game. So as we've been doing this through the tests, it's been very interesting. All of a sudden, someone gets to 28 one round, and then they're down to 14 the next round. So it's very interesting how it all fluctuates and goes through. So in other words, just because you're getting the big number today, you're not going to be a winner tomorrow, right? The next round, you may go to the bottom of the park. Someone may go up to the top and go from there. So it's definitely a simulation of what IT security does every day in comparison to what other groups do. It's always that variable, and I think that's giving that, and everybody I've shown this to where we've done the demos has liked that this is exactly what we deal with at a day-to-day basis of what the craziness in our life is, that we're always winning or always losing. It's never going to be a continual ramp. It's always a jag going from there. So there we go. So here's the next permutation. As I throw this out there, all of a sudden, as I was talking to some people, it's like, okay, well, what happens about hackers? Because we don't live in our own bubble. We start throwing that together. It basically starts to show you the influence of outside influence that's going to attack you. It's not just your own little bubble. This is that next phase of that infrastructure, servers, and application people. don't have to worry about as they're building their stuff. So, black and red. So in other words, they have the same thing as programs because they're trying to get into your IAM. They're trying to ruin your vulnerability management programs. They're trying to do this. So they have the same things in the programs. The variables, they also have the same attack surface, or your guys' the protection of admins, users, staffing, those sort of things. But they also when we go run it like a business, they have things like vulnerabilities. They find a vulnerability. They don't have a vulnerability. They have blocks. They've been blocked in here and there. So it's that whole another hacker dice. It's throwing that corruption side. They also start out as a business, each of them, and their goal is to get to 30. And then they also have the plus and minus dices with also those. And they have their own category dice. But as you'll notice, their binary is the positive, the GrrCON skull is the negative. So in other words, it's that they also now they're flipping on their side. They're running their own business versus the anti, right? They're the anti-CISO, the corruption. So, and you repeat this over this whole time. The winner plus 30 wins after so many times. So if the hacker all of a sudden, so now you're competing not versus other CISOs, but now you're competing against someone who's trying to break in and ruin your job. Second permutation. Here we go. So in other words, you're playing this game. All of a sudden you come into the second roll. Whoever is below 10 all of a sudden switches out the CISO dice. It is the corruption dice at that point. You roll it 2 more times through the system. Then all of a sudden, if the corruption dice is beating the other people, so in other words, all of a sudden the corruption dice goes to 15 and someone is at 12, they all of a sudden roll over. Sort of that whole thing of going through the things that one bad environment creates another bad environment. And you keep rolling to go through those permutations. It's just to give you that perspective. That is the story of the game. It's very short and sweet, but it's always growing. Always, always growing. We're already starting to talk about next 3 turns to build this game up. The next idea is more advanced permutation. So the first part would be you'd roll the dice to get budget every year. So in other words, like we said, we do the 3-year window. At the beginning of the day, you roll dice. You get a budget to put in certain categories to protect yourself so many units. So in other words, if you roll the 3, you could put it at IAM. So in other words, if all of a sudden the negative comes at IAM, you're protecting yourself from there and it goes through there. Every so often, every 4 quarters or whatever, you would get to roll the budget dice, throw it back in. So now you're starting to play that next permutation of what you guys really do at that next level to get that experience of this is now you're having control and not just a random variable experience. That is what we're doing. There's also the idea of putting cards to it so that you can buy and acquire things and go from that and build that game up more and more. And this is actually testing feedback input. This is what we're going to do. So to be honest, at Optiv booth, that's because I work where that's where we have a booth. I have dice so we can run through these. If you want to try it out, I would appreciate it so I can get your guys' feedback. The test groups that I've done already, we're getting a lot of feedback, a lot of permutations. The idea, at least in this initial phase, is just to have conversations. The idea to expand this game up even more and more, so it's a real game that you guys experience every day in your life to explain to somebody who does not have your experience, does not work in the system, to understand all the variables and also how to possibly train somebody to do these things. So it could be incident response, sort of a module off to the side. Why? GrrCON 10. That's next year. I think the dates are current at the end of October. And why is GrrCON 10? We're going to do a Kickstarter for this in 2020. So we should hopefully have a Kickstarter kicking up. We're going to build this game up. It will be on Kickstarter to spin it up to celebrate GrrCON 10, 2020. That's the idea. Like I said, we need to spin this up. I'm getting vendors already sponsoring. It is not going to be a vendor-sponsored game because they all get bought all the time and move around. So we don't want to brand the game that way. But it is an opportunity for you guys and us to explain what we do for a living, have it go forward, and move forward. So that's it. So if we can have your trust in that. So I am not, imagine that, a Facebook or any social. This is the only social media I use is LinkedIn because that's what I do. And it's really just to keep contact so I can reach out to people. We created Alchemist Prime is actually the sort of pseudo company we made to generate this game for us. If you want to please follow that, that is where we'll post things about Alchemist Prime. We'll get this information out. Hopefully get some feedback from you on how it's going. And also this is where we will post up the Kickstarter information if you want to. If you want to be involved, please let me know. I am local. I am out of Grand Rapids. We are also part of West Michigan Cybersecurity Consortium. Just go through us and find us. Or reach out to Jamie. They will also go from there. Like I said, I don't have an hour presentation, so you have a little more free time. So Any questions? Any thoughts? Please let me know. Short, sweet. Go from there. And this is for GrrCON, so this is one of the things. Thank you.